Welcome to a special episode of Doug's Electronic Repair Bench.
Good afternoon, YouTube. I'm here with you today to bring you the third installment of the troubleshooting series. And basically what we're going to do today is look at the circuit we're going to be troubleshooting and check out some potential places to hook up the equipment to get the job done. So before we start, we're going to have to go over some basics here. Whenever you troubleshoot any kind of electronic circuit, whether it be this radio or any other device, there's a few things you need to do. You got to kind of go over the obvious things first. You know, like, is it plugged into the wall? You know, I know that sounds stupid, but you'd be surprised how many times people forget and not, you know, have the radio plugged in, things like that. So you know, before you even plug it in, you want to make sure if the power cord is good. Some of these old radios, you've probably seen some that power cords is turned to mush and the frayed and everything else. So you want to make sure you got a good power cord before you try to plug it into the wall. And that brings up another subject. If you have a variac, that's a good way to start your radio up. Is and isolation transformer, that's a must-have. But you want to try to start it up low voltage first and kind of let it build up a little bit and make sure there's no shorts, things like that, anything wrong with it. And also a dim bulb, if you have that in your circuit, that's a good thing. And if nothing else, at least a dim bulb. That way you protect it a little bit against shorts and stuff. So other things that you want to check out is, you know, if the tubes light up, that's a good indication it's working. Does the dial light come on? I mean, the power indicator light, whatever. Does that come on? Basically, you want to make sure the power supply section of the device that you're testing is working. That includes, like I said, the tubes, and is it getting B+ voltages? I mean, if those things are not present, the radio is not going to work. So I'll be going over some things here showing you where to connect on this particular radio to check these things on, like on for B+ and things like that. I'll be putting up some pictures here, and we'll go over them as I put them up. So other things, if you've gotten this radio from somebody else and they said, well, you know, it doesn't work, this and that, blah, blah, blah. Pay attention to what they say as far as what they're saying the problem is, because, you know, 9 times out of 10, that's probably the problem with the radio. Just like, give you a good example, is the tuner I got recently. The trouble reported was the tubes, you know, only half of them light up, and there was no sound. Well, of course there's no sound because it's a tuner. That's an obvious thing there. But the other problem, you know, when I plugged it in after checking, make sure it was okay to plug in and stuff like that, in fact only the rectifier tube was lighting up. So, you know, right there, that's a good indication. You need to check that, make sure that everything's at least, you know, on the surface, obvious, the visual aspect of the radio. You make sure that you can see that the tubes are lighting up. And again, you know, it's a good idea to check for B+. And before you get into the actual logical troubleshooting. All right, we're back again. What we want to look at here this time is on how to check for B+. Now, B+, for those who don't know, is the operating voltage of the radio, the DC voltage. It's produced by the, in this case, the line cord coming in is rectified, and from there it's filtered, and then it goes out to the radio. The operating voltage is on this radio. You can find it here. If you look at the illustration where it says check for B+ here. That's coming out of the rectifier tube there, and if we look at the other diagram here, we can see that the bottom of the radio will yield a good place to see that voltage without having to go too far. If you just look at the 35Z5 GT tube there, and there should be 125 volts on pin 8, and that would be B+. And if that's present, then you can pretty much be assured that at least the voltage is available to the radio to work, and from there you need to basically go into the troubleshooting aspects of it, and then we can try to find out the cause of the problems. On this radio, what we're going to do is we're going to check for, they're going to use a method of troubleshooting called half splitting, and whether you use signal injection or signal tracing, it's pretty much the same. Most radios, the half splitting takes place between the audio section and the radio section, and if we put our test probe on the high end of the volume control, which is shown in the illustration there, you should be able to either check for audio signal there. In other words, you should use your signal tracer to see if there's audio there from the radio. You may have to tune the radio in to get a station, but you should hear radio type sounds there. And the other way, if you look at the other illustration, if you're using signal injection, you want to inject your audio signal to that same point. So you should be able to, if you hear a tone coming out of the speaker, you'll know that the audio is working. So either way you do it, you're checking the same thing basically to see if you have audio present. Now, if you do have audio present with the signal tracer, I think it's a good idea to use a signal generator to make sure the tone goes through to the speaker. In other words, if you put a tone there at the same spot, and the volume control makes it go up and down and things like that, you know the audio section is good. So that's pretty much how you half split the radio. Once you have it down pat, now here's the other thing, if you don't have any audio, then you pretty much know that the problem is in the audio section. So that would be advisable then to go through the audio section one little part at a time, using either signal tracing or signal injection, and then you try to find out where the problem lies. The best place to go from there probably would be the grid of the output tube and find out if you have signal there, and if you do, go to the plate of the output tube, find out if you have signal there, and the last stage or last part of that would be the audio output transformer. Might be bad, you can always test that too. Go on the other side of the audio output transformer where the speaker leads hook up and see if there's a signal there. If there is a signal, then you know that the speaker's bad. So it's pretty easy to narrow down your problem areas and go through it that way. So that's always another thing. Now there is another stage in this radio that I didn't really mention too much. If you look at the detector and audio tube, right off of the volume control, it goes through a capacitor and goes straight up to the grid of that tube. And so if you don't have it at the grid of the output tube, then you should backtrack through the coupling capacitor there to the plate of the other tube and find out if it's there. Now there's only other place you can go is the grid of that tube. If it's there and it's not at the other end of the plate, then the problem's with the tube. So it's pretty much how you do it as far as troubleshooting. It's just a matter of eliminating things, and that's what you do with signal tracing and signal injection. Alright, the way we're going to do this now after we found out the audio is working is to we're going to inject an RF signal on further back on the radio. Again, we'll use the half splitting, and where I like to split the radio section is at the IF tube. I generally try to put a signal in at the grid of the IF tube, and from there we can determine a lot whether the problem is in the later stages or in the earlier stages. So here's what we got. If we inject an RF signal into the radio at that point, the grid of the IF tube, and the radio, or not the radio, but the signal comes through the speaker, we hear the modulated tone through the speaker of the radio, we know that those circuits are good. Okay? The problem then would lie before that point, either with the oscillator converter stage or the RF amplifier stage, either one. So basically you'd want to start backtracking with your signal injection and keep going back through the IF transformer on each side of that. Well, not each side, the secondary side is basically the same as the grid of the IF tube. But you'll go on the primary side of the first IF, and check there, and if it's not there, that's the same as the plate of the oscillator converter tube. So then we would go back to the grid of the oscillator converter tube, and if you don't have signal coming through there, you know the problem is with that tube. If you do, then you go back again a little further through the coupling capacitor to the plate of the RF tube. Yeah, again, like I said, if you get it at the plate of the RF amplifier, go to the grid of the IF amplifier. If it's not there, then you know the problem is with that tube. That's pretty much the last stage there. I mean, if you're getting it there, if you don't get it there, then you know it's got to be somewhere in between. We can do the same thing exactly with signal tracing, and the way you do that is to check for RF at the same point there, the halfway point, the grid of the IF tube. Now, if you have a signal there, you know that the stages before that point is working, and the problem would be between the IF tube and the audio section. That's pretty simple right there. Just again, you would take and check for if you have your signal there, check on the plate of the IF tube. If it's not there, then you know it's a problem with that tube. If it is there, go through the IF transformer to the grid of the detector tube and check for RF there. If it's there, then you know that the IF transformer is good. If it's not, then you suspect the IF transformer being bad. That'd be the second IF transformer there. It's just common sense, really, when you think about it on how to do this. So basically, again, maybe your detector's bad. Well, you know, you can check that too, because as you know, the audio comes down through the cathode that way, and if it comes through the cathode, through the diode section there, and you'll be able to tell that. And again, that could be a bad tube. So like I said, that's pretty much all of the RF section. After that, it goes into audio coming out of the cathode there. So like I said, that's pretty much how you would do that. Some people don't like to do it that way. They don't like to use the half splitting method, which, you know, that's up to you. You develop your own method of doing this. Try to put a signal, an RF signal, into the antenna and go from that way, and then come back through the stages as I do. That's fine. I'm just giving you one method of doing it, and if you prefer to do it, you know, basically a shotgun method like that, where you come through and just eliminate one stage at a time on your troubleshooting, that's fine too. So basically, that's all there is to this as far as troubleshooting goes. Now, there is another thing here, using a combination of the two, signal injection and signal tracing. Say your audio section is not working, and so you have you've done figure that out, but maybe there's still a problem in the radio. So basically, if you find that your audio section's not working, and you want to take your signal tracer then and make sure your radio section is working, so you would have to hook up your signal tracer into the same exact spot again, the volume control there, the high side of the volume control. Use that as your audio section for your radio. So at that point, you should be able to tune a radio station and listen to it just like you were listening to it on the radio, if everything is working. Now, if it's not, then you go and use your signal injector on the other side and start, you know, trying to pinpoint the stage the problem is in. But you would use a combination of the two instruments there in that case. So it is possible to use the signal tracer and signal generator on a single stage. It's very easily done. Say you're suspecting a problem with your first IF transformer there. Well, you could simply put your signal tracer on the grid of the IF tube, and put your signal generator on the plate of the oscillator converter, and that's going to give you an indication of if signal is getting through that IF transformer. And if not, then you know there's a problem there. Again, the signal that we are using is a 455 kilohertz signal with a modulated tone on it, so that the modulated tone will be picked up by the signal tracer, and you need to make sure that the signal tracer is on, the probe is on RF instead of AF, so it can demodulate the signal coming through.